Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for coming for Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll start with the Kirtan. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vijana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Hari Jaya Girivara Vijana Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Jana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much for coming and assembling it. Let us start with the prayer. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् अद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेव श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभैव च पतितानां वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे भंगुं रंगायते गिरिं यत्कुपातम् श्री गुरोन् दीननाथ Hare Krishna. I seek blessings from all the devotees and especially from His Grace Yugal Kishore Prabhuji and all the senior Vaishnavas and my Guru Maharaj so that I can glorify Srimad Bhagavatam even though I don't have any realization. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 3, verse number 13 to 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.13. Katam Katam Sutaya. Huh? Oh, actually 13 to 15. I'll change it. 13 to 15. कथं सुताय पितृगेह कौतुकम् पितृगेह कौतुकम् कथं सुताय पितृगेह कौतुकम् निशम्य देह सुरवर्यनेन्गत् निशम्य देहे सुरवर्यनेन्गते अनाहुत अपि अभियन्ति सौरधम् भारतुर्गौरोर्देहकृतश्च केतनम् भर्तुर्गुरोर्देहकृतश्च केतनम् कथां सुताय पितर्गेह कौतुकम् निश निशम्य देह सुरवर्ग्यनेन्गते अनाहुतापि अभियन्ति सौहृदम् भर्तुर्गुरोर्देहकृतश्च केतनम् I'll continue. So synonyms: Katam, how, Sutaya, of a daughter, Pitrageha Kautukam, the festival in the house of her father, Nishamya, hearing, Deha, the body, Suravarya, of O best of the demigods, Na, not, Ingat, Ingate, disturbed, Anahutha, Anahuta, without being called, Api, even, Abhiyanti, goes, Sauradam, a friend, Bhartur, of the husband, Gurur, of the spiritual master, Dehakrata, of the father, Cha, and Ketanam, the house. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O best of the demigods, how can the body of a daughter remain undisturbed when she hears that some festive event is taking place in her father's house? Even though you may be considering that I have not been invited, there is no harm if one goes to the house of one's friend, husband, spiritual master, or father without invitation. Next verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.14. तन्मे प्रसीदेदम् अमर्त्यवाञ्छितं कर्तुं भावं कौरुनिको भतार्हति त्वयात्मनोर्धय अहम् अध चक्षुष निरूपितमानुग्रहानयाचिता. Translation: O immortal Shiva, please be kind towards me and fulfill my desire. You have accepted me as half of your body. Therefore, please show kindness towards me and accept my request. Next verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.15. Rishiruvacha एवं गिरित्र प्रियया विभाषित प्रत्या प्रत्याव्यादात प्रहासन श्रुत प्रिय संस्मारितो मार्म बी भीधा कुवाग इशु यान आह को विश्वश्रजम समाक्षता. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Maitreya said, Lord Shiva, the deliverer of the hill Kailash, having thus been addressed by his dear wife, replied smilingly, although at the same time he remembered the malicious, heart-piercing speeches delivered by Daksha before the guardians of the universal affair. Purport. When Lord Shiva heard from his wife about Daksha, the psychological effect was that he immediately remembered the strong words spoken against him in the assembly of the guardians of the universe, and remembering those words, he was sorry at heart. Although to please his wife, he smiled. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a liberated person is always in mental equilibrium in both the distress and the happiness of this material world. Therefore, the question may now be raised, why a liberated personality like Lord Shiva was so unhappy because of the words of Daksha? The answer is given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Lord Shiva is Atmarama, or situated in complete self realization, but because he is the incarnation in charge of the material mode of ignorance, Tamogun, he is sometimes affected by the pleasure and pain of the material world. The difference between the pleasure and pain of this material world and that of the spiritual world is that in spiritual world, the effect is qualitatively absolute. Therefore, one may feel sorry in the absolute world, but the manifestation of so-called pain is always full of bliss. For instance, once Lord Krishna in his childhood was chastised by his mother Yashoda, and Lord Krishna cried. But although he shed tears from his eyes, this is not to be considered a reaction of the mode of ignorance, for the incident was full of transcendental pleasure. When Krishna was playing in so many ways, sometimes it appeared that he caused distress to the gopis, but actually such dealings were full of transcendental bliss. That is the difference between the material and spiritual world. The spiritual world, where everything is pure, is pervertedly reflected in this material world. Since everything in the spiritual world is absolute, in the spiritual varieties of apparent pleasure and pain, there is no perception other than eternal bliss. Whereas in the material world, because everything is contaminated by the modes of material nature, there are feelings of pleasure and pain. Therefore, because Lord Shiva, although a fully self realized person, was in charge of the material mode of ignorance, he felt sorrow. So, today's in today's three verses, we can see so many things. Like in the verse 13, Mother Sati is talking about how a body of a daughter remains undisturbed when she hears that some festive events is taking place in her father's house. So Mother Sati is directly saying that I am this body and I am attached to this body and I am attached to the relatives of this body. So she's speaking in this way. So in 13th verse, focused on attachment to the material world. And in the 14th verse, oh immortal Shiva, like she's speaking, uh, she is glorifying Shiva so that Shiva, Lord Shiva, become kind to her, and she honor her request, whatever request she have. So she is glorifying Lord Shiva only to solve her, only to uh, get her purpose done. So not only to, but it is a way of speaking. If you glorify someone, naturally they'll become pleased, and they'll do whatever you ask them to do, especially in material world. That is why we see that all all the people, most of the people working in the office, they glorify their bosses only to get promotion or whatever they want. So that is a way of speaking. So in 14th verse, actually Sati is showing that she has some desire, and what is that desire? To go to uh, her father's home. And in the 15th verse, we are seeing how if we keep something in our heart, our peace is destroyed just by hearing about it. So 13th, 14th, 15th verse are speaking on the cycle of attachment. In Bhagavad Gita 2.55 to 2.62, the cycle of attachment, Krishna speaks about it. How, let's see, the 2.55. See, in 2.55, Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification which arises from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in a pure transcendental consciousness. But but if it doesn't happen, then what happens? One who is not disturbed in the mind even amidst the threefold misery or elates when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a stage of steady mind. So Lord Shiva is actually, he is very steady. He is not disturbed in any threefold miseries. He is not disturbed if any misery come to him. He is a sage of steady mind. But here it is said, who is free from attachment, fear, and anger is called a sage of steady mind. But here in this verse, number 15, 4.3.15, we have in the purport, Maitreya Rishi is saying that Lord Shiva got disturbed, was remembered about what was spoken to him in that great assembly, and he felt sorrow. So then in the verse, in the verse Bhagavad Gita text number 2.61, sorry, 2.62, it is said that while contemplating on the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And for such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. And then the next verse, from anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one fall down into the material pool. So now if we relate in the verse 13 to 4.3.13, Mother Sati is saying that she is clearly saying that I am this body, because she's representing herself as a body of a daughter of Daksha. So she's clearly saying that I am this body, and because of that body, because she's thinking that I am this body, she felt she got this attachment towards his family and his relative and her relative, and because of this attachment, desire developed for her to go to for her to go to the place even where she was not invited, and she's giving reasons because reasons why she can go even if she's not invited. In the future verses, Lord Shiva said that yeah, you can go to your parents' home if you are not invited, if they don't feel angry by seeing at you. But if they feel angry by seeing at you, you should not go. So Mother Sati is actually she is a personification of Maya Devi, and Lord Shiva is personification of of a liberated person. And even when something happened in their life, it is said by Srila Prabhupada in the purport that this is because of Lord Shiva being attached, being the deity of mode of ignorance. Because of this mode of ignorance, because he is connected to the material world, he was influenced by this mode. But then Srila Prabhupada said, relating the spiritual, uh, he's comparing between material modes of nature and spiritual pleasure and sorrow. We have seen in so many pastimes of Krishna, where Krishna, it externally seems that, oh, they are all, when Krishna left Gokul, everybody were crying. They were gopis also cursed Akrura, and they were feeling so much separation. But that separation was not that much painful, because it is absolute. Srila Prabhupada is saying it's absolute pain or absolute pleasure will only lead to transcendental bliss. Even that separation was not, it was painful for sure, because but it increased love towards Krishna. And when it increased love towards Krishna, when they were remembering the pastimes which they performed with Krishna, they were that was giving them comfort. And what to speak of gopis, even friends of Krishna, even servants of Krishna, even Mother Yashoda, even the parents of Krishna, everybody were feeling that separation. But it was giving them some happiness, some transcendental bliss, because it increased love towards Krishna. And similarly, we see in the Dwarka side, all the wives of Krishna were with Krishna, and it was giving them transcendental pleasure. And that pleasure was not in the mode in any material mode. And that is why, in if it is material pleasure, then it will there will be a seed of suffering with every pleasure. But if it is spiritual pleasure, there will be no seed of suffering. And that is what we have seen, that when Krishna, they were always happy. We don't see that, oh, that wives of Dwarka were unhappy. There were some times like who Jama, no, who is Satraji's wife? Daughter Satyabama. Yeah, Satyabama was unhappy when Satraji was killed. Their unhappiness was because Satyabama was considering herself again as a daughter of his father, and she was considering herself as a body. Like that attachment came, like how Sati, Mother Sati, that attachment came. That's why there was some suffering to Satyabhama. But if everybody were attached only to Krishna, then there was no suffering. Even though it looked pain, but it was transcendental. So the when we read this purport again, these three purports, we have to learn that anything, if we are attached, which is not having Krishna, then that will only lead to suffering. even while even if we think that if we are doing something for Krishna consciousness, for Krishna conscious activity, or for spreading Krishna consciousness, there is so much chance that we might get attracted. Sorry, we might get attached to the results for that activity. There is because of the modes we are connected with the because we are in the material world and we are always under the influence of material modes. There is a chance that we are doing some activity for Krishna and we get attached, and that is why it will lead us to suffering. Following Krishna consciousness process is very joyful. That is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9.2, that this process is susukham. This process is very joyful. But when we see that we are going through suffering in Krishna conscious, even though we are performing Krishna conscious activities, that is because we are not fully Krishna conscious. Maybe at some point of time, while performing our service, we might not be fully Krishna conscious. We might be thinking that, oh, if I do this service very nicely, I'll get appreciation. Then there is no Krishna, and that's why if you don't get proper result, you'll feel bad. So all the suffering in this world is only because of the attachment, which is which is towards material which is towards material benefit. If that attachment is not towards Krishna, then for sure your mind will not be satisfied, and then suffering will start. So mind should be satisfied, and mind can only be satisfied by performing Krishna conscious activity fully. If you want to be 100% happy, you have to take up devotional service fully, not partially. In the name of yukta vairagya, if we start attaching ourselves with the results of whatever service we do or whatever things we use for Krishna consciousness, then it will lead to suffering. When people say that, oh, I am performing Krishna conscious activity but I'm not feeling happy, one of the reason is we are not fully Krishna conscious all the time. Otherwise, we see Prahlad Maharaj, we see so many exalted devotees, Amrish Maharaj, and we see Avanti Brahmana. They were going through suffering all the time. No, Amrish Maharaj did not went all the time, but Prahlad Maharaj went all the time, and Avanti Brahmana went suffering all the time. And there are many other examples in Srimad Bhagavatam who went suffering all the time, but because they were Krishna conscious, they did not feel it. What to speak of Srimad Bhagavatam example? We have live example, Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, and then there are many other senior devotees in ISKCON who went through externally it looked that they are going through suffering, but because they are being fully Krishna conscious, they were not attached to their body. They fully realize that they are not this body, they are spirit soul, and that is the reason we never see them crying for their situation in their life. We see them, they are very enthusiastic, and they they want to spread this Krishna consciousness all over the world. One question was asked to Jayapataka Swami one time, that do you don't feel bad even after performing so much even after dedicating your life to Krishna, you are going through this suffering, do you don't feel bad? The answer came, I am very grateful to Srila Prabhupada. I am indebted to Srila Prabhupada. So I always think, how can I repay the debt to Srila Prabhupada, which he has given me so much shelter. So he is not feeling sorry. Instead of that, he's thinking that he's doing very less for Srila Prabhupada. He wants to do more for Srila Prabhupada. He wants to travel every moment and every living entity he want to deliver. So that is what his consciousness. And externally, if someone sees when Jayapataka Swami Maharaj came here, some new devotees came to temple, especially from college students came. After looking at him, before looking at him, when they first saw him, they were feeling like very sorry for him. But after hearing from him, they were feeling like how can a person being in this situation be so much powerful and enthusiastic about speaking about Krishna. So their consciousness changed, their view to the material world actually changed, and they were thinking that they were having so much gratitude to this process, that if somebody follows this process, they can attain that position, they can attain that kind of consciousness so properly. And this process always every time 100% Krishna conscious activity. I'm speaking like this, but I don't have any realization. I am very fallen. I'm speaking this everything for myself. If and only if I can become 100% Krishna conscious always, then there is then then that is the goal of our life. We don't even need any liberation. We don't even need any appreciation. We don't even need any award or any glory to perform our activity. Whether anybody is seeing us or whether nobody is seeing us, will continue doing it for the pleasure of Krishna and pleasure of Guru. And if we have some reversals in our attempt, will not be will be very much steady. And if we have some results in our attempt, still we will be steady, will not be like will not be flying in the sky or will not be depressed. So for any problem in our life is only because we are not always being Krishna conscious. We are attached to something or others. Like again, that example is there. Bharat Maharaj was very happy before getting attached to deer. But once he got attached to deer, he was always in anxiety. Where is the deer? Whether the deer is eating or is the deer is safe? Where the deer went? Why he's not here? And he's always in anxiety and thinking about deer. But and because of that attachment, it led him to some suffering. He had to take again a birth. He had to take again two births. But because he was attached to the deer, and he for some moment he was not Krishna conscious, he was dragged down to the life of a deer only for some moment. If he was Krishna conscious all the time, he would have been saved by getting attached to the deer. But because for some moment he felt compassion towards the deer, because of his Kshatriya nature, he felt compassion to the deer, that just dragged Bharat Maharaj to get more and more and more attached to the deer. So similarly, if we have some attachments in our life, we can always, especially speaking about myself, I have this experience. Attachment just starts with either seeing or by hearing or by just if we can ignore that, then we will be saved from lot of suffering. But if we cannot ignore, especially speaking from my experience, it will give us lot of suffering. And so much time is wasted again to come back to that to that point where we can again perform a devotional service activity very nicely. So much time is wasted. Maybe sometimes years are wasted. So just for a moment, if we can ignore our attachments, and if we can check our desires and be Krishna conscious always, then we are saved from lot of suffering, and we will be having shelter and protection of Krishna and Guru and devotees. So when I read this purport, when in this purport, when Srila Prabhupada is saying that when Lord Shiva heard about Daksha from Mother Sati, he immediately remembered all the words spoken to him by Daksha, and he felt sorrow. But only for a moment. He was he because he's fully Krishna conscious always. As soon as he heard, he just remembered the words of sorrow, but then again he ignored all those things, and he became Krishna conscious. That is why we don't see that, oh, Lord Shiva was going through so much suffering. Yeah, there is a episode in next chapters that because when Lord Shiva heard that Mother Sati was burnt in fire, he became so angry, and then Veerabhadra he invoked Veerabhadra, and then he came and destroyed all the yajna. Yeah, that is there, but that was only that was not at that time. That anger was not material. That anger was only because that fire sacrifice, even if they are doing it, will not be successful because one Vaishnava, Daksha has offended Vaishnava. So even if externally they would have completed that fire sacrifice, it Lord Vishnu wouldn't have come. But what happened after that episode? In the end, Lord Narayan came and blessed everyone. So that this shows that that anger was not material. It was meant for some reason. And Lord Shiva, as soon as he heard about when he got this thoughts of sorrow, immediately he ignored those thoughts and became Krishna conscious. So that is what we can learn from this purport and from these verses, that how, that we have to do like how to do like this, how to ignore all. Is it so easy to ignore? Once you get this thought, it is very difficult because our mind is not very easily controlled. Krishna says again in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna says that I cannot control my mind, I can control anything, but I cannot control my mind. Krishna says by practice and renunciation, you will able to control. So when we, it will not, this will not happen from day one. It might take even some years. But when we are in the association of devotees and when we seek guidance from devotees always, if we are going through some trouble, if we seek guidance from devotees, they'll help us to come out of all these attachments and all this ignorance. And then slowly, there will be a day when we will we will we will master this art of ignoring these thoughts, and then we will able to be fully Krishna conscious in our life and in our activity. So that is what I wanted to speak today. Please forgive me if I have spoken anything wrong, and if there are any corrections, please correct me. Hare Krishna. Anything you want to add? Anything you want to add? Anything? Anyone have anything on Zoom?
Suji, no question, but thank you so much for bringing wonderful points, especially about if you are not feeling happiness in Krishna consciousness, it's just basically not practicing Krishna consciousness properly. That was a wonderful point, Prabhu. Thank you.
That is what that point was for myself, Rohit. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. If no one have anything to say, then we'll end here. वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव शिल प्रभुपाद हरे कृष्ण
Shri Rohininandan Prabhu ki jai. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Amrita Bhattacharya की जय
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dandavat.